Your learning is amazing.
Ito ang 106.3 Dance Radio. Dance Radio.
Prepare yourself.
Ang silid-aralan sa radyo, hatid namin ay makabagong paraan ng pagtuturo at kalaman. Mapaumaga, tanghali o hapon man yan, ang istasyong magbibigay impormasyon kahit saan man.
Alright, here we go.
106.3 Dance Radio. Doña Aurora National High School, Santa Rita, Aurora, Isabela.
This
106.3 DWDR-FM. Physics, Chemistry, Earth Science, Biology, Biochemistry, Environmental Science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is the way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity and how the world develops and works today. Science. This is your class, and this is science. And now, here is your host for the day.
Okay, good afternoon po sa ating lahat. So, thank you for tuning in to our radio station 106.3 Dance Radio. Welcome to the week 4 episode of our Scientific Time. So, I'm Teacher Dina, and with me right now is Ma'am Donabel Velasco.
Okay, hello, magandang hapon sa ating lahat, lalong-lalo na sa ating mga viewers and listeners. Okay, lalong-lalo na sa mga grade 9 learners for this opportunity given to us. Nais din nating pasalamatan ang suporta ng ating administration na pinapangunahan ng ating Chief Executive Supervisor, Chief Education Supervisor and Officer in Charge, Sir Rodrigo V. Pascua, ang ating Assistant Principal, Ma'am Ruby Guillermo, at sa ating Head Teacher, Ma'am Annabel A. Rodriguez, sa lahat na rin ng mga teachers na nandito sa school at mga naka-work from home, magandang hapon po muli sa ating lahat.
Okay, so for this afternoon, makakasama din natin ang ating mga magagaling na science teacher upang ipaliwanag ang ating aralin. So, andito si Sir Ronnie Avalos, Sir Ma'am Riza Marzan, and of course, si Ma'am Annabel Toribio. Okay? Ma'am Donna, ano nga ba dapat ang mga kailangang matutunan ng ating mga mag-aaral sa hapong ito?
Okay, for today, our objective is to explain the features of photosynthesis and cellular respiration.
Okay, so mga anak ha, mapapag-aralan natin yung tungkol sa photosynthesis, which is very important. And of course, cellular respiration. So nung nakaraang linggo or nung week 3 natin, napag-aralan natin ang tungkol sa non-Mendelian genetics. Ito yung mga, ano na nga ba ito? Non-Mendelian, Ma'am Donna?
Yung ating multiple alleles,
yes, yung
mga
mga
codominants.
Okay, so ngayon naman, ating tatalakayin ang tungkol sa photosynthesis at cellular respiration. So, babalik tayo after the RBI airing.
Dance Radio, silid-aralan sa radyo. Hatid namin magbabago, paraan ang pagtuturo.
Wala nang makakapit
pigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta na magtulong-tulong. Sulong edukalidad, Dance Radio. Learning is amazing.
Physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, biochemistry, environmental science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is a way of helping the brain grow in finding new knowledge and help us defeat our curiosity of how the world develops and works today. Science, science, science. This is your class, and this is science.
Good day, everyone. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome to the RBI session of Science 9 for Week 4, titled Ecosystem Life Energy. I am teacher Yufei B. Magaway, your radio teacher in science. At this moment, be sure to have with you your learning activity sheets, pen and notebook for taking down notes. Are you ready for today's lesson?
Yes, teacher.
Let's have a short review of our previous lesson. I hope you have learned a lot from our past discussion of the lesson. Do you still remember the topic?
Yes, teacher. Our topic was biodiversity and evolution. We discussed about biodiversity, population, and species extinction.
I'm very glad you still remembered it well. Different parts of the ecosystem interact with one another. Changes to one part affect other parts. What happens when all members of a species die?
It's so sad, teacher, because that species placed in the ecosystem is gone forever.
Yes, and we consider the species to be extinct. But before a species population permanently disappear, it becomes endangered first. Do we have endangered species in the Philippines, dear learners?
Yes, teacher. Some animals like the tamaraw in Mindoro, mouse deer in Palawan, Philippine deer, monkey-eating eagle, and aquatic species like dugong found in Negros, Batangas, and Leyte are in danger of extinction.
Very good! What are the factors that could cause the disappearance of these organisms in our ecosystem?
Deforestation, acid precipitation, air pollution, destruction of coastal resources, and water pollution, teacher.
Very well said, my dear learners. You learned so much from our previous lessons, my dear learners. For this week's lesson, you are going to explain the basic features and importance of photosynthesis in the different organisms in the ecosystem. I know you already have a prior knowledge about photosynthesis, right?
Yes, teacher.
Do you know why plants are very important?
Yes, teacher. They provide shade for everyone on a hot day.
That's right. Would you like to share another importance of plants?
Yes, teacher. Plants provide food and habitat to other organisms, and they are also important to our planet, teacher.
Exactly. Plants provide food for all organisms. Do you know why these plants are important to our planet?
Yes, teacher. Plants are important because they release oxygen gas for animals and absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Very well said, my dear learners. I think you are now ready for our next topic for today. Let's have our exciting journey on the basic features and importance of photosynthesis. How do plants manufacture food?
Plants make food through the process of photosynthesis, and this is the reason why plants are considered producers in our ecosystem, teacher.
Very good! In photosynthesis, plants manufacture food and use different raw materials such as carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight to produce food. Do you still remember the role of sunlight in photosynthesis?
Yes, teacher. It is the main source of energy. Plants need the energy of sunlight to manufacture food, teacher.
Yes, you are right. Organisms like plants, algae, and some bacteria are capable of harnessing solar energy from the sun and use it to make food. How do plants use sunlight to manufacture food?
Plants manufacture food by using energy from sunlight to transform carbon dioxide, a gas absorbed from air, and water taken from the ground by the roots into carbohydrates in the form of glucose and oxygen gas, teacher.
Precisely! This process is called photosynthesis, and it occurs in the chloroplast of the plant cells. The glucose produced by the plants is used to build the body parts of the plants and a source of energy to fuel its metabolic activities. Glucose can be stored in plants in different forms. Can you name some?
Glucose can be stored in the leaves, fruits, roots, and in some other specialized parts of plants like stems, teacher.
You are right! Do you know how many molecules of water and carbon dioxide are involved to produce one molecule of glucose in the process?
In equation, teacher, photosynthesis is the reaction of 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of carbon dioxide through the aid of sunlight to produce 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen, teacher.
Exactly! Leaves of plants produce glucose through photosynthesis. The excess glucose is converted into starch, which is the reserved food material for plants. Let's continue with our discussion with a special structure in plant cells known as plastids. Remember, plastids are not found in animal cells.
Teacher, may we know what are plastids?
A plastid is an organelle involved in the synthesis and storage of food. Its function largely depends on the presence of pigments. A plastid containing green pigment, which is chlorophyll, is called chloroplast, whereas a plastid containing pigments apart from green is called a chromoplast. Are you familiar with the chloroplast?
Yes, teacher. The chloroplast contains the photosynthetic pigment chlorophyll. It works by capturing sunlight and converting it into useful energy.
Very good answer! Chloroplasts are found in all green plants and algae. They contain a high concentration of chlorophyll that traps sunlight. Are you familiar with the chlorophyll, dear learners?
Yes, teacher. Chlorophyll is a pigment in plants. Its job in a plant is to absorb light, usually sunlight.
Precisely! What are the functions of the chloroplast, my dear learners?
First, it absorbs light energy and converts it into chemical energy. Second, the production of nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide phosphate or NADPH, and molecular oxygen by photolysis of water, teacher.
Very good. Another one?
It produces ATP or adenosine triphosphate through the process of photosynthesis.
Precisely. I will be back after a few reminders to discuss what happens during photosynthesis.
Science Trivia. Science Trivia. Science Trivia.
Did you know chlorophyll isn't the only photosynthetic pigment? Chlorophyll is not a single pigment molecule, but rather is a family of related molecules that share a similar structure. There are other pigment molecules that absorb or reflect different wavelengths of light. Plants appear green because their most abundant pigment is chlorophyll, but you can sometimes see the other molecules. In the autumn, leaves produce less chlorophyll in preparation for winter. As chlorophyll production slows, leaves change color. You can see the red, purple, and gold colors of other photosynthetic pigments. Algae commonly display the others' colors too. This trivia is brought to you by ThoughtCo.com, Kaagham, Doña Aurora National High School, and 106.3 FM Dance Radio.
It's science time.
You're listening to Teacher Rio.
I am back. Do you know what happens during photosynthesis, dear learners?
Yes, teacher. Food is manufactured during photosynthesis.
Yes, you are right. Food is manufactured during the process. What are the processes involved?
The light and dark reactions are involved, teacher.
Yes, you are right. Light reaction occurs with water as the raw material in the presence of sunlight. Light reaction is initiated by colored pigments, mainly green-colored chlorophylls. They convert light energy into chemical energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate or ATP and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate or NADPH and oxygen. Are you familiar with ATP and NADPH?
Yes, teacher. Adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate are energy carriers. They carry energy to the second part of photosynthesis, known as the dark reaction, teacher.
You are right. Do you have an idea why is it called light reaction?
It is called light reaction because it needs light for the reaction to occur, teacher.
Very good. What about the dark reaction? Why is it called dark reaction?
It is called dark reaction because sunlight is not needed, teacher.
You are correct. Dark reaction is also known as Calvin cycle. In this reaction, the sunlight is not needed. The energy from adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate are used to fix carbon dioxide. What are the products in this reaction?
The products are sugar molecules and other organic molecules necessary for cell function and metabolism, teacher.
Very good. Can you now tell the main difference between light and dark reaction?
Yes, teacher. Light reaction is the first stage of photosynthesis, which traps light energy in order to produce adenosine triphosphate and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, whereas dark reaction is the second stage of photosynthesis, which produce glucose by using the energy form ATP and NADPH produced from the light reaction, teacher?
You are right. Let's continue. What could be some of the factors that affect the ability of plants to produce food?
One is the light intensity, teacher.
You are correct. The rate of photosynthesis would go up as the intensity of light is increased. And this will lead to the production of more adenine triphosphate. However, very high intensity may slow down as it bleaches the chlorophyll. Normal amount of sunlight is needed for a normal rate of photosynthesis. What else could be a factor that affects the rate of photosynthesis?
Another is the carbon dioxide concentration, teacher.
Very good. It was earlier discussed that carbon dioxide is one of the reactants of photosynthesis. Do you have an idea how the concentration of carbon dioxide affect photosynthesis?
If the concentration of carbon dioxide is high, the rate of photosynthesis is increased, teacher.
Exactly. However, it is found that 0.1% of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases the rate of photosynthesis significantly.
Science Trivia. Science Trivia. Science Trivia.
Did you know the higher the temperature, then typically the greater the rate of photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a chemical reaction, and the rate of most chemical reaction increases with temperature. However, for photosynthesis at temperatures about 40 degrees, the rate slows down. This because the enzymes involved in the chemical reaction of photosynthesis are temperature sensitive and destroyed at higher temperatures. This trivia is brought to you by ThoughtCo.com, Kaagham, Doña Rornasin High School, and 106.3 FM Dance Radio.
It's Science Time.
You're listening to Teacher Rio.
I am back. Another factor is temperature. How does temperature affect photosynthesis?
Temperature ranging from 25 degrees to 35 degrees Celsius is required for a good rate, teacher. Teacher, can I ask a question?
Yes. What is it?
What do you think will happen at temperature around 0 degrees Celsius, teacher? Will photosynthesis continue?
You have a very good question. Photosynthesis will stop at a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius because enzymes in plants will stop working. At very high temperatures, enzymes are denatured, which will cause photosynthesis to stop. Do you think water supply also affects the rate of photosynthesis?
Yes, teacher. Lack of water does not only cause the plant to wilt. The plant also loses its ability to capture light and also limits the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed by the plant.
You have a very good answer. This happens when leaves are dry. They close their stomata in order to conserve the water being lost. What is the fifth and the last factor that affects the rate of photosynthesis?
It is the chlorophyll concentration. It is the chlorophyll that absorbs light energy needed for the reactions involved in photosynthesis to occur, teacher.
You are right! According to studies, the relative photosynthetic effectiveness of green light is much greater in the matured leaves with high chlorophyll content than in the leaves with low chlorophyll content. To better understand the lesson, please open your learning activity sheets. Activity 1 on page 61. Let's try to answer the first 3 questions. Number 1. What are needed in photosynthesis?
Sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide are needed in photosynthesis, teacher.
Very good! Number 2 question. Why is chlorophyll important in the process?
Chlorophyll helps the plants to trap energy from sunlight, teacher.
You are right! Number 3. What is the main function of chloroplast in photosynthesis?
The chloroplasts serve as site of photosynthesis in plants, teacher.
Your answers are all correct. Let's try to answer the first item in the test yourself questions. How does temperature affect the rate of photosynthesis?
Temperature gives the plant energy to perform photosynthesis, teacher.
Very good! For activity number 2, you have to identify the different factors affecting photosynthesis by writing your answers inside the boxes. And for activity 3, by completing the diagram. Write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. Continue answering all the activities in your most convenient time after this broadcast. Please do not leave any question unanswered.
Science Trivia. Science Trivia. Science Trivia. Did you know that leaves are green because of chlorophyll? The most common molecule used for photosynthesis is chlorophyll. Plants are green because their cell contain an abundance of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs the solar energy that drives the reaction between carbon dioxide and water. The pigment appears green because it absorbs blue and red wavelengths of light, reflecting green. This trivia is brought to you by thoughtco.com, Kaagham, Doña Aurora National High School, and this station. It's Science Time!
You're listening to Teacher Rio.
Human population is rapidly growing. This created a need to increase the amount of photosynthesis and the efficiency of converting photosynthetic outputs into products useful to people. May I call on somebody to sum up our discussion on the features and importance of photosynthesis?
Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants and certain other organisms transform light energy into chemical energy. During photosynthesis in green plants, light energy is captured and used to convert water, carbon dioxide, and minerals into oxygen and energy-rich organic compounds, teacher.
Very good! What about the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis?
The factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis are light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature, water supply, and chlorophyll concentration. Plants manufacture food by using energy from sunlight to transform carbon dioxide, a gas absorbed from air and water taken from the ground by the roots, into glucose and oxygen, teacher.
Photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast of the plant cell. The glucose produced by plants is used to build the body parts of the plants and a source of energy to fuel its metabolic activities.
You are all correct! Before we end today's session, let me check if you really understood the lesson. Please answer the following questions in your own words. Number 1. Why will an increase in carbon dioxide concentration result in an increase in the rate of photosynthesis?
Carbon dioxide is a reactant and a raw material needed for photosynthesis, teacher. If there is an increase in the concentration present in the atmosphere, there is also an increase in the rate of photosynthesis.
Absolutely! Question number 2. Where does the flow of energy through living organisms start?
The flow of energy through living organisms begins with photosynthesis. This process stores energy from sunlight in the chemical bonds of glucose. By breaking the chemical bonds in glucose, cells release stored energy and make the energy they need. These are used as fuels throughout the living world and are also key players in the process of photosynthesis, teacher.
Very good! You have a very comprehensive answer. Any idea that you would like to add?
Glucose is the end product of photosynthesis, and it is the universal food for life. Adenosine Triphosphate is the energy carrying molecules that cells use for energy. It is manufactured during photosynthesis, when glucose is also manufactured, teacher.
Very good! I am so happy to listen to your answers and ideas. What is the importance of photosynthesis to life, dear learners?
Photosynthesis is important to living organisms because it is the number one source of oxygen in the atmosphere. Without photosynthesis, the carbon cycle could not occur. Oxygen requiring life would not survive and plants would die. Without photosynthesis, there would be little or no oxygen on Earth.
Very good! I hope, dear grade 9 learners, that our discussions for today, particularly on photosynthesis, will help you in answering the different activities prepared in your Learning Activity Sheets 5. Before we end today, I would like to acknowledge the teachers behind this School on the Air lesson. Ma'am Donabel G. Velasco, our script writer. Ma'am Rosabel R. Brillo, our language editor. Ma'am Annabel A. Rodriguez, our content editor. Ma'am Riza N. Marzan, our technical specialist. And I am Teacher Rio Faye B. Magaway, your radio teacher in science. Thank you very much and have a good day. Stay tuned for our live discussion.
That's radio, siniparalan sa radyo, atid namin makabago, paraan ang pagtuturo.
Wala nang makakapigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta na magtulong-tulong, sulong edukalidad. That's radio. Learning is amazing.
Okay, good afternoon once again and welcome to our live discussion. Okay, let us proceed to our lesson, my dear learners. I hope you will enjoy listening to our lessons which we have prepared for you today. Cells run on the chemical energy found mainly in carbohydrate molecules, and the majority of these molecules are produced by one process. Through photosynthesis, certain organisms convert solar energy into chemical energy, which is then used to build carbohydrate molecules. The energy stored in the bonds to hold these molecules together is released when an organism breaks down food. Cells then use this energy to perform work such as movement.
Okay, so the energy that is harnessed from photosynthesis enters the ecosystem of our planet continuously and is transferred from one organism to another. So therefore, directly or indirectly, the process of photosynthesis provides most of the energy required by living things on Earth. So photosynthesis also results in the release of oxygen into the atmosphere. So in short, to eat and breathe, humans depend almost entirely on the organisms that carry out photosynthesis.
Okay, so after our discussion on the photosynthesis during our RBI, Ma'am Dines,
Yes, ma'am.
what are the raw materials for photosynthesis again for it to take place?
Okay, so the raw materials of photosynthesis, we have water and carbon dioxide. Yan, ma'am. So let us take a look on the equation. To understand better photosynthesis, let us take a look on the equation. Okay, so photosynthesis of course requires sunlight, which is the ultimate source of energy from the sun, the energy coming from the sun, I should say. Okay, so it requires sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water as the starting reactant. So after the process is complete, photosynthesis releases oxygen and produces carbohydrate molecules. So most commonly glucose. So these molecules contain, or these sugar molecules contain the energy that living things need to survive. Okay, so nakikita natin dyan sa screen natin yung equation. So ang equation hindi lang sa math, di ba? So kahit sa science, marami din tayong mga equation dyan. Okay, so the equation is we have 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water. Okay, with the aid or with the of sunlight, with the help of sunlight, yung dalawa na yon, the raw materials, produces 1 molecule C6H12O6 or yung tinatawag natin na sugar or the glucose plus 6 molecules of oxygen. So yan po. So 6CO2 plus 6H2O produces C6H12O6 plus 6O2. So, although the equation, yung equation natin parang napakasimple, di ba? The many steps that take place during photosynthesis are actually quite complex. So, napakasimple na tinitignan natin pero complicated siya. So, in plants, photosynthesis takes place primarily in the chloroplast of leaves. Ano na nga ba yung chloroplast? Ito yung the green pigment. Yun ba yun, Ma'am Donna?
Yung chlorophyll.
Yes. Yung chlorophyll daw yun. Okay.
Chlorophyll.
Yes. Okay. So, chloroplasts have a double membrane. So, within the chloroplast is a third membrane that forms a stalk. Na file yun eh. A disc-shaped structure called the thylakoids. Okay, so embedded in the thylakoid, kumbaga nakaano siya doon sa thylakoid na yun, nandun siya, the thylakoid membrane are the molecules of the chlorophyll. O, yan na yung sinasabi ko kanina, the chlorophyll. Yes, yun na yung pigment. Okay, so, yung molecule na yun, that absorbs light, through which the entire process of photosynthesis begins. Ibig bang sabihin dito, Ma'am Donna, pag hindi green yung kulay ng dahon, they will not perform photosynthesis, the process of photosynthesis,
May
Ma'am
mga
Donna?
pigments kasi tayong ibang kulay ang nakikita
Yes.
natin. Ito yung meron sa kanila yung mga chromoplast. No, like for example, yung example natin kanina sa RBI natin, may red, may orange, may yellow. Okay, so to complete our discussion, may we have now Ma'am Annabel and Ma'am Risa to discuss the 2 important stages of photosynthesis. Ma'am Risa?
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon din po sa ating mga nakikinig dyan, ng mga Nine Chico and even yung mga kaibigan natin dyan na gustong mag-refresh sa ating mga lessons.
Good afternoon din sa aking mga 9 Mendel, 9 Darwin, and 9 Pasture.
Ayan, so we're talking about photosynthesis. This photosynthesis takes place in two stages. So the number one is the light-dependent reaction, and the second one is the Calvin cycle. So first, the light-independent reactions. In this stage, the chlorophyll absorb energy from sunlight and convert it into chemical energy with the aid of water. Yan. So, the light-dependent reaction release oxygen as the byproduct from the splitting of water. Yan. So, bakit kaya naman natin tinawag na light-dependent reaction itong first stage natin, Ma'am Annabel?
Okay, that's a good question, Ma'am Riza. So we call this light-dependent reaction, obviously because it needs sunlight for the process to go on. So in the light-dependent reactions, energy from sunlight is absorbed by chlorophyll, which is the green pigment na sabi ni Ma'am ni Ma'am Dina, and convert this into stored chemical energy in the form of electron carrier molecule known as NADPH, which is for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, and the energy currency molecule, which is ATP, or the adenosine triphosphate. So here in the light-dependent reactions, okay, nabanggit na rin to ni Ma'am Dina kanina, it occurs in the thylakoid membranes, in the granum, which is a stack of thylakoids within the chloroplast. Okay, so basically, chloroplast is a place where actual photosynthetic process happens, but specifically in the thylakoid membranes. Ma'am Riza?
Yan. So, napakaliwanag yung light reaction natin. So, the second one is the light-independent reaction, or what we call the Calvin cycle. So, the energized electron from the light-dependent reaction provide the energy to form carbohydrates from carbon dioxide. From the carbon dioxide molecule. So the light-independent reaction are sometimes called Calvin cycle because of cyclic nature of process. And although the light-independent reaction do not use light as reactant, they require the product of the light-dependent reaction to function. So, Ma'am Annabel, ano naman nangyayari sa light-independent reaction? Or ito yung tinatawag nating dark reaction, di ba, Ma'am Annabel?
Yeah, or Calvin cycle. Tama ba ako? Calvin cycle,
Yes,
dark reaction, or the light-independent reaction. So, pareho lang yung tatlong yon. So here, kung sa kanina doon sa light-dependent reaction, it depends upon sunlight. Here, it depends upon the energy carrier molecules, which are the two products of light reaction. Tama ba ako? ATP and NADPH. Okay, so these two electron carrier molecules are actually needed for the production of new carbohydrate molecules. And after the energy is transferred, the energy carrier molecules return to the light-dependent reactions to obtain more energized electrons. Okay? In addition, several enzymes of the light-independent reactions are activated by light. Okay, Ma'am Riza, ano nga ba ang kahalagahan, global significance ng photosynthesis natin?
So the process of photosynthesis is crucially important to the biosphere for the following reason. So una, it creates oxygen or oxygen gas, which is important for two reasons then. So the molecular oxygen in the Earth atmosphere was created by the photosynthetic organism. So without photosynthesis, there would be no oxygen to support cellular respiration needed by complex all or the multicellular life. And the other one also, oxygen is vital for the creation of our ozone, which protect life from harmful ultraviolet radiation emitted by the sun, or the yung ozone is created from the breakdown and reassembly of oxygen. So, ano naman kayang maidadagdag ni Ma'am Dines sa ating importance ng ating photosynthesis.
Yes, Ma'am Riza. Okay, so aside from dun, it creates oxygen, it also provides energy for nearly ecosystem. Paano? So that is by transforming light energy into chemical energy. Kasi nga hindi naman natin diretsong pwedeng kainin yung light energy, di ba? Yung nganga ka na lang sa labas, under the sun, tapos nasa yun na yung
Papasok na
energy.
tayo.
Yes. Kailangan na mai-transform mo na yung light energy into chemical energy. So, photosynthesis provides the energy used by organisms, whether those organisms are plants, animals siguro, di ba ma'am? Okay, or even fungi, or yung, ano yung tawag natin pag naglolokohan? Fungi, di ba? Yung fungi. Okay, so yun po, hindi lang siya mag-create ng oxygen, but also provides energy. Okay, so yun po. May idadagdag ka pa, Ma'am Annabelle?
Okay, yes. Okay, panghuli lang nakaragdagan, Ma'am Dina and Riza. So this process also, photosynthesis provides the carbon needed for organic molecules. We know that organisms are primarily made of two things. We have water and organic molecules. Okay? So organisms are primarily made of these compounds, and carbon is they're all carbon-based.
Yes.
The organic molecules are carbon-based. Ma'am Donna.
Okay, napaka-interesting na huhook ako sa sa flow ng ating discussion, ano? Ma'am Dines, meron
Yes,
ka bang
ma'am.
gustong idagdag?
Okay, so meron lang konting karagdagan, Ma'am Donna. Okay, so parang it is very clear na nagagawa ang form of energy sa plants through the process of photosynthesis. So napaka-importante, di ba? Yan na yung pwedeng ma-store sa leaves, sa fruits, sa stems, and even sa roots na pwede nating kainin. Kumbaga, yung light energy, i-convert na siya. Na yun nga sabi ko kanina, hindi mo naman direktang pwedeng kainin yung light energy, di ba?
Okay, yes.
So, it should go to the process yung sa photosynthesis.
Okay. Yes, Ma'am Dines, and inside every cell in our body, inside in every cell of all animals, no? Energy is needed to carry out life processes. So, ganun ka-importante ang photosynthesis sa atin. Okay?
Okay? Yes, Ma'am Donna. So, kailangan talaga yung sa photosynthesis. Okay? So, next we have cellular respiration. Diba? Parang magkasunod lang yung dalawa na yan, ano? Photosynthesis, cellular respiration. So, cellular respiration is one way to extract energy from the bonds of glucose and other food molecules.
Okay, Ma'am Dines, idagdag ko lang konti, ha?
Yes, ma'am.
Kasi nga, kaya tayo lumundag sa cellular respiration kagad
Yes,
kanina
oo.
kasi na-absorb, na-store na yung energy sa food.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes,
you have
ma'am.
to extract the energy now. So,
Yes.
yun ang susunod na lesson natin, ano?
Okay. So, cells can store the extracted energy in the form of ATP. Okay? Or yung tinatawag natin na Adenosine Triphosphate. So, ano nga ba ang Adenosine Triphosphate,
Okay.
Ma'am Donna?
So, let's take a closer look to what is, this is a molecule, ano? The adenosine triphosphate. This is an energy-carrying molecule. May dala-dala siyang energy found in the cells of all living things. Now, ATP captures chemical energy obtained from the breakdown of food molecules and releases it to fuel other cellular processes. Okay. So, kailangan din ba ng lahat ng mga cells ang energy? Lahat-lahat ba, Ma'am Dines?
Actually, yes, ma'am. So, our cells kasi, yung cells require chemical energy for three general types of tasks. So, there are three types of tasks. Okay, one, to drive metabolic reactions that would not occur automatically. Okay, so yun yung unang task. The second one, to transport needed substances across membranes. And the third one, to do mechanical work. Mechanical work, such as moving muscles, di ba? Mechanical work. So, ibig sabihin ba, ma'am, ang ATP ay stored energy din po ba, Ma'am Donna?
ATP is not a storage molecule. Hindi siya storage molecule katulad ng glucose or glycogen for chemical energy. It is not a storage molecule for chemical energy because that is the job of carbohydrates, such as glycogen and fats. When energy is needed by the cell, it is converted from storage molecules into ATP. ATP then serves as a shuttle. So, ano bang trabaho ng shuttle? Taga-hatid, taga-transport. Delivering energy to places within the cell where energy-consuming activities are taking place. So, let's call again Ma'am Annabel and Ma'am Risa for the next topic on cellular respiration.
Okay, so we're back with Ma'am Riza. Thank you, Ma'am Dines and Ma'am Donna. So cellular respiration is actually one of the most elegant, majestic, and fascinating metabolic pathways on Earth, yet it's also one of the most complicated processes.
Yes.
So actually, when I was in high school, it took me hard to understand about this lesson.
Yes, ma'am.
Kasi hindi siya madali.
Yeah, so
Diba? Ang hirap ding ituro, parang ganon.
Yeah, so
ipaintindi sa mga bata.
Kaya makinig mabuti mga anak
Yes.
for this part because gaya ng nasabi kanina, it's one of the most complicated processes. Okay, so actually it's made up of three important stages. Three main metabolic stages. We have glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and oxidative phosphorylation or the electron transport chain. So Ma'am Riza will have to discuss with us about the first stage of cellular respiration, which is glycolysis.
Yes, Ma'am Annabel. So the first stage of cellular respiration is what we call the glycolysis. Dito, it is a sequence of 10 chemical reactions taking place in most cells that breaks down a glucose molecule into 2 pyruvate molecules. So in this glycolysis, there are two phases, the energy requiring phase and the second one is the energy releasing phase. So in the energy requiring phase, the starting molecule of glucose get rearranged and 2 phosphate groups are attached to it. Ayan. So, the phosphate groups make the modified sugar those 1,6-biosphate, or these are unstable, allowing it to split in half and form 2 phosphate-bearing carbon sugars. Because the phosphate used in these steps came from ATP, or what we call the Adenosine Triphosphate, 2 ATP molecule get used up. So in second phase naman, ito yung tinatawag nating energy releasing phase. Each 3 carbon sugar is converted into 3 carbon molecule, the pyruvate, through a series of reactions. So in this reaction, 2 ATP molecule and 1 NADH on nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. Hindi pala. NADH. Ayan. So are made. So because this phase takes place twice, once for each of the 2 carbon sugars, it makes 4 ATP and 2 NADH in overall. So overall, the glycolysis convert on 1 6-carbon molecule of glucose into 3 carbon molecule of pyruvate, and the net product of this process are the 2 ATP and 2 molecule of NADH. Ayun. So makikita natin sa ating diagram na merong pyruvate na ma-produce pagkatapos ng glycolysis.
Yes.
Yan. So, ano mangyayari dito sa pyruvate na ito, Sir Ronnie?
Yes, Ma'am Risa. So, makikita natin yung diagram the pyruvate molecules produced during the glycolysis
Nabasa na natin yung message ko.
mitochondria. Makita natin dyan. where they can
Walang signal
where
dito.
they are each converted into compound known as
Pwedeng tumayo.
acetyl coenzyme
Makikita
A,
ka.
which then enters to the next stage. So, mapansin natin, magkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na pyruvate oxidation.
Sakman.
So, pyruvate travels into the mitochondrial matrix, is converted to a
Hindi ka naririnig.
Di masyado yatang naririnig si Sir Ronnie.
Yung mic. Parang hindi naririnig yun. Baka yung microphone, sir.
Okay na?
Ma'am Risa, okay siya?
Okay na, Ma'am Rita?
Parang walang marinig. Ano, parang dito
Oo.
lang naririnig.
Sige. Tuloy mo na.
Sige. Okay na? Okay na. Okay, balik tayo.
Ayan.
So, ano nangyayari dun sa pyruvate na nabubuo dun sa end process niya? So, balik tayo dun. Pyruvate, mapapansin dyan, the pyruvate molecules produced during glycolysis then enter the mitochondria where they each converted into compound known as acetyl coenzyme A, which is then enters the next stage. Kung makapansin natin dyan, the pyruvate travels into the mitochondrial matrix and is converted to a 2-carbon molecule bound to coenzyme A called acetyl coenzyme A or CoA. Carbon dioxide is released and NADH is made. Yan na yung pumapasok sa second stage, which is the Krebs cycle. Overall, pyruvate oxidation converts pyruvate into acetyl coenzyme A, 2 carbon molecules attached to coenzyme A, producing NADH and releasing 1 carbon dioxide molecule in the process. The acetyl CoA acts as a fuel for the citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycles in the next stage of cellular respiration. Yan, Ma'am Lisa, yung nangyayari sa pyruvate.
Ayun, so, Sir Ronnie, pagkatapos naman ng glycolysis or the breakdown of the glucose, sunod na yung tinatawag nating na citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle, di ba, sir?
Yes, Ma'am Risa. The acetyl coenzyme or the acetyl CoA combines with a 4-carbon molecules and yan na, makita sa diagram, and goes through a cycle of reaction, ultimately regenerating the 4-carbon starting molecules, ATP, NADH, and FADH2 are made and carbon dioxide is released. These reactions take place in the mitochondrial matrix. So, tandaan natin, the products of a single turn of the Krebs cycle consists of 3 NADH molecules which are reduced to the same number of NADH molecules and 1 FAD molecules, which is similarly reduced to a single FADH2 molecules. These molecules go on the fuel of the third cellular respiration, whereas carbon dioxide, which is also produced by Krebs cycle, is released as a waste product. So, Ma'am Donna?
Okay. Sir Ronnie, yun bang na-produce na NADH at Fadh 2 ay papasok sa last stage ng cellular respiration, sir?
Okay, Ma'am Donna. Tama ka dyan. Balikan natin yung ating diagram sa slide kanina para makita natin yung flow of materials. Okay, yan yung diagram natin. Sa final stage ng cellular, Ma'am Donna, anong product ang mapoproduce?
Ayan, nakikita natin yung NADH and Fadh 2. Hindi ko makita. Yun yung raw material pala, yung pumasok sa... Okay. So, in the oxidative phosphorylation stage, the electron transport chain, each pair of hydrogen atoms removed from the NADH and the Fadh 2. Nandito na tayo sa last stage ng cellular respiration, provides a pair of electrons that reduces one atom of oxygen to form water. So, magkakaroon tayo ng formation of water dyan, kaya one of the product of cellular respiration is water kasi doon nang gagaling yun doon sa um, doon sa na-reduce na oxygen. Okay? So, electron transport chain is the major mechanism by which the large amount of energy in foodstuff, ito na yung mga kinain natin, are conserved and made available to the cell. The series of steps by which electrons flow to oxygen permits a gradual lowering of the energy of the electrons. This part of the oxidative phosphorylation stage is sometimes called the electron transport chain. Some description of the cellular respiration that focuses on the importance of the electron transport chain have changed the name of the oxidative phosphorylation. Kaya medyo dala-dalawa ang ginagamit nila, but as of now, we are more familiar with the electron transport chain. Okay. So, the electron transport chain forms a proton gradient. Pag sinabi natin proton gradient, ito yung nagkakaroon ng, yung isang side, mas maraming proton. Yung proton dyan, yung yun, dun sa may maraming hydrogen ions. Kasi sila yung nagdadala ng positive charges, di po ba? Okay. So, forms a proton gradient across the inner mitochondrial membrane which drives the synthesis of adenosine triphosphate o yung ating mga ATP. And then, oxygen plays a very important role in this final stage of cellular respiration. What exactly does our body do with all this oxygen? Sir Ronnie, bakit ang dami natin kailangan ng oxygen, di ba? Kada hihinga tayo, kailangan natin ng oxygen.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am. So like many other organisms, need oxygen to live. As you all know, if you ever try to hold your breath for too long, lack of oxygen can make you feel dizzy or even black out.
Yes.
And prolonged lack of oxygen can even cause of death.
Yes.
Mahirap pag-stampede, ma'am, at nawala ka ng oxygen, talagang nakakamatay yan.
Yes. Nakakamatay ka.
But how have you ever wondered why that's the case or exactly your body does with all that oxygen? The reason you need oxygen is your cells can use this molecular during electron transport chain. Electrons are passed from one molecule to another, and energy released in this electron transfer is used to form an electrochemical gradient. The energy stored in the gradient is used to make ATP. So, yan
ang liwanag, ano? Yes. Napakaliwanag ang pagka-discuss. Okay, so where does oxygen fit into this picture?
Okay, so tingnan natin yung picture. Just sa diagram dyan. Oxygen sits at the end of electron transport chain, where it accepts electron and picks up protons to form water.
Yeah.
Diba? Mapapansin natin, meron yung water. If oxygen is not there to accept electron, for instance, because a person is not breathing in enough oxygen, electron transport chain will stop running and ATP will no longer be produced back.
Okay. So, gagawin mo ba yon? You stop breathing? So,
Hindi ka nahihinga.
Oo, di ba? Kaya...
Baka tuluyan ka ng di makahinga.
Yes.
Minsan ginagawa ko yun, ma'am. Pag may naamoy akong sigarilyo, gano'n.
Yes.
Kahirap. Kasi pero mahirap talaga. Kahit seconds lang.
Pero ang hirap mong i-hold, ano? Kaya usually yan, nahihilo tayo. Kung hindi, nanghihina. Yun pala ang dahilan. So, Sir Ronnie, you are saying that without enough ATP, cells cannot carry out the reactions they need to function, and after a long enough period of time, may even die. So, ito yung magiging result ng kawalan ng oxygen, di ba?
Yes, ma'am Donna. Oxygen plays a very important role in the electron transport chain, which is the series of protein and organic molecules found in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Electrons are passed from one member of the electron chain to another in a series of redox reaction. Energy released in this reaction is captured as a proton gradient, which is then used to make ATP. So mapapansin natin dyan, Ma'am Donna, yung palaging magtatanong sila, mitochondria, ang palagi na involved na organelles.
Di ba powerhouse of the cell? Powerhouse of the cell.
ATP. Di ba, ma'am, ATP is other term is energy.
Oo, ATP. Energy
It's the
currency.
currency molecule.
Oo. Kaya ngayon pwedeng magdagdag ako.
Sige ma'am, sige.
Okay. So, dito ko nare-realize na sabi natin, pag hindi ka huminga, manghihina ka, di ba?
Yes.
Or you may even die.
Yeah.
So, ibig sabihin, by just breathing alone or by just sitting here na nakikipag-usap sa inyo or kahit natutulog ka, we are continuously using energy. So yung mga cells natin are continuously working. So ibig sabihin, ang cellular respiration is a continuous process, di ba?
Yes,
Habang
ma'am.
tayo ay nangangailangan ng energy, at yung ating mga cells ay nagfa-function na ginagawa nila yung kanilang trabaho sa isang organism, not only to us, even to lower forms of animals. Okay?
Kailangan din natin ng maraming energy, ma'am.
Yes.
Energy.
Kailangan natin ng
Yes.
maraming energy kahit tulog ka, nagtatrabaho yung ating mga cells. Di ba, Ma'am Annabel? Yung puso natin does not stop working.
Yeah.
So, more energy ang kailangan mo. So, ibig sabihin, the more work you do,
The more.
The more energy you need.
the more
Oxygen.
oxygen
Yes.
your body
Needs,
requires.
yes,
Ano?
yes.
Kailangan nating mas maraming oxygen. Kaya pala, yun ang napansin ko kapag may mga extraneous activities, like, for
yes.
example, yung i-connect ko na sa lesson natin. I-connect ko na, for example, sa mga swimming ganyan. Di ba yung kapag saan ba tayo nagsuswimming?
Okay, hindi ako mahilig.
minsan sa beach, ano? Okay, minsan sa mga sa mga ilog lang. Minsan sa pool. Oo. Okay, may mga napupulikat, di ba? Pinupulikat.
Yeah. Yes.
Yung mga nagka-cramps ang paa. Tapos minsan naman, di ba, very extraneous activity yon. Minsan naman, kapag yung sa mga basketball game,
Oo.
may mga pinupulikat din, yung mga players mismo.
mismo.
Di ba, usually, they run, they jump, no? At saka yung movement nila talagang mabilis. And these are some of the examples na our body needs more oxygen.
Yes.
So, yung pala, kaya sila na pinupulikat, o yung tinatawag nating nagkakaroon sila ng, ang tawag doon sa English?
Cramps ko na naman.
Yung nagka-cramps, yung mga leg cramps, ganyan, is the lack of oxygen na pumapasok doon sa kanilang mga muscles, and this now leads to the development of lactic acid formation.
So parang,
Okay.
di ba sa mga buntis, usually nangyayari din sa mga buntis yun, ma'am, yung nagka-cramps ang paa.
Okay, hindi ko pa naranasan yan.
Kailangan maranasan mo. Ma'am.
Ano naman yun? Minsan it is caused by yung lack of calcium sa mga bones natin. Oo. Pero in terms of sa mga activities talaga, yung lactic acid formation.
Sa anaerobic ba yan, ma'am?
Sa anaerobic. Kasi dalawang dalawang direction ang pupuntahan niya, no? Yung kapag
Yung isa,
meron
pag
kang
may
may oxygen, yun yung nagkakaroon ka ng cellular respiration, diretso ka sa glycolysis, magpo-form ng ATP.
Yes, ma'am.
Pero pagka doon in the absence of oxygen, yun yung anaerobic, nagkakaroon tayo ng lactic acid formation. O yung tinatawag nating fermentation.
Yes,
Okay, yun yung mga ginagawa natin pagka gumagawa tayong suka. Yan.
Kaya kapag halimbawa nag-workout, ma'am, di ba, pag masakit ang muscles, it's because of the formation again of lactic acid.
Yes. Kaya usual lang sinasabi sa atin, sige, huminga ka ng malalim, gano'n, di ba?
Parang maghahabol ka ng hininga mo.
Hanggang sa ma-replenish yung oxygen na kulang.
Kaya yun pa lang dahilan, kaya ka pinapahinga, sige, hinga ka ng malalim, ganyan. Okay. So, anything more?
Okay, so doon tayo sa processes involved in electron transfer chain. Meron tayong dalawang steps actually, so I'll be having this first step and then Ma'am Dines will have the second step.
Okay.
Okay, so in the first step, we have the delivery of electrons by NADH and FADH. Okay, so here, reduced electron carriers, which are the NADH and FADH, from other steps of cellular respiration transfer their electrons to molecules near the beginning of the transport chain. In the process, they turn back into NAD and FAD, which can be reused in other steps of cellular respiration. So that's the first step.
Yes. Okay, yes, Ma'am Annabel. Pero, ano lang natin, Ma'am Annabel, sabi mo kanina kasi there are only 2 steps, but
Ay, meron ba?
actually, there are 4 steps, Ma'am Annabel.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. Okay lang yan. Lahat tayo nagkakamali, di ba?
Tao lang.
Yes, tao lang. Okay, so yun yung first step,
Tao
the
pala ako.
delivery of electrons by NADH and FADH. So, the second step naman is the electron transfer and proton pumping. So, as electrons are passed down the chain, so they move from higher to a lower energy or lower energy level. So, from higher to lower. So, parang madali lang yun, ma'am. Kasi lang parang nag-ano lang siya, nag-slide. Okay, so, releasing energy. So, some of the energy is used to pump hydrogen plus ions.
Okay.
Moving them out of the matrix and into the intermembrane space. So, this pumping establishes an electrochemical gradient. Nabanggit ito kanina ni Ma'am Donna di ba?
Yung uneven, hindi pa rin.
Yung electrochemical gradient kanina. Nabanggit ni Ma'am Donna ito kanina doon sa may saan nababanda yon?
Electron transport.
Yes, electron transport. Kasi nga, di ba yung pinag-uusapan natin, the 4 steps in the electron transport chain. Okay?
Okay.
Yung release kasi ng hydrogen ions, yun ang nagkukos ng gradient. Kaya yung isang side niya, mas marami siyang protons doon.
Okay, so sa second step, Ma'am Donna and Ma'am Dines, we have the release of hydrogen ions.
Yes,
na kailangan later on doon sa third step. In the splitting of oxygen to form water. Okay?
Yes.
So at the end of the electron transport chain, electrons are transferred to molecular oxygen. Ano nga ba itong molecular oxygen natin? Oxygen, O2.
O2.
Okay, O2. Okay. This O2 splits in half. So, magkakaroon tayo ng single molecule of oxygen.
Yes.
And takes up the hydrogen ion from the second step to form water.
Yes.
Okay.
Kaya sa pag huminga ka, ito yung reason, kaya pag humihinga tayo o nagsasalita, one of the byproduct is water. Kaya tayo pinagpapawisan or lumalabas ang vapor sa bunganga or kapag nagsalita ay huminga.
Yes.
No, every time you breathe,
malamig kitang-kita.
may mga vapor yan.
Tumapat sa salamin may moisture.
Yeah, okay.
Kahit nga, di ba, yung nakamas tayo,
dito sa mata
kapag nakasalamin ka.
Ito, basa.
Oo,
may moisture
yung sa
yan.
natin sa salamin.
Okay, Ma'am Dines, for the last.
Okay, so ito naman yung last. Okay, so splitting of oxygen to form water. Yung number 3. Step 4 naman, the gradient-driven synthesis of ATP. Synthesis of ATP.
Ayan.
So as hydrogen
Gagawin na yan.
ions flow down their gradient and back into the matrix, they pass through an enzyme called ATP. Ano na nga ba yung
Synthase.
ATP kanina? Yes, ATP synthase.
Oo.
Okay, so
Enzyme yan.
yes, ma'am. Which harnesses the flow of protons to synthesize ATP. So, tignan natin yung flow niya. Yung mga yan, yung steps na yan, di ba parang magkaka-connect lang sila? Hindi pwedeng iba yung pupuntahan ng isa. Dire-diretso yan.
Kahit naman sa first step ng glycolysis,
dire-diretso yan. Kumbaga, a continuation. Talagang yung flow niya makikita natin. So, parang, lalo na pag talagang yung makikita natin yung flow, meron tayong mas malaking diagram, di ba ma'am? Makikita talaga na they are being connected with each other.
Meron tayo kaso maliit,
Yes,
maliit na yung figure pagka pinos natin dyan.
So yun po yung sa electron transport chain, the different steps.
Okay. So, ready na ba tayo para i-total kung ilan lahat yung ATP na na-produce for every stage, no, in the cellular respiration. Kasi, pero may mga nababasa tayo, hindi pare-pareho yung number of ATP. Sana may mga books akong nakita, yung iba, it's 32.
May 34 din ako
34, may 36
pa nga.
O, 38 yung pinakamataas. No? But, let us try to summarize. No? In glycolysis, ang input doon is glucose. Ano? And ang output natin is, ano yung output natin kanina? We have,
pyruvic acid.
okay, pyruvic acid na dalawa. And
yes.
then, yung ATP
Dalawa.
na na-produce is 2. Okay. So, Sir Ronnie, ilan ang na-produce sa, yung isiningit natin na isang very short part of the, dito sa pyruvic acid.
Yes. So,
Ano yung-
walang na-produce na
ATP.
Oo.
Zero.
Pero anong output, Sir Ronnie?
Okay. Output niya, 2
Dioxide.
molecules of carbon dioxide and 2 molecules of
Acetyl-coenzyme.
coenzyme.
Okay. So, yan ngayon ang papasok doon sa susunod nating stage. Okay, Ma'am Annabelle.
Krebs cycle. So we have here the inputs to acetyl coenzyme A, 1 per cycle. And then we have the outputs for carbon dioxide and the ATP. The total number of ATP produced would be 2 ATP, 1 made per cycle.
Okay, kasi dalawang cycle siya,
dalawang
Okay. And then, Ma'am Dina, yung sa
Yung
last,
sa last, yung ETC. Ano ba yung ETC?
Electron Transfer
Yes,
Chain.
etc. etc. Baka
Parang
sabihin
et cetera.
ng et cetera. Okay, so the electron transport chain, yan na yung last stage. Okay, so what are the inputs? We have oxygen, and we have also FADH2 and NADH. Yun yung input natin.
Yun yung pumapasok.
Yes.
Oo.
Yung output, kumbaga, ito na yung product, H2O.
Tubig. Laging may tubig,
oo. Okay. So, eto na yung sa, na-produce. Ilang ATP ang na-produce dito na tayo. Yung sinasabi kanina
Sa huli.
ng Donna, yes, na merong 32, may 34, 36, and even 38.
Oh, 38.
Yes.
Yung nakikita ko.
Pero ang talaga is 34 ata talaga yung
Pero pag idagdag mo yung dalawa doon sa
yung
doon
sa
first
glycolysis and the Krebs cycle.
38.
38 talaga siya.
Okay, I have read also one explanation from, I have watched from a YouTube video.
Sa YouTube.
Sabi niya, some of the ATPs actually
Are used.
are used in the other processes.
Oo.
That's why hindi natin, ang tawag doon, iba-iba yung mga
Yung values nila.
Hindi na ibibilang yung summary.
Yung iba, binibilang nila.
Oo.
Nagamit
Nagamit doon sa ibang process.
Yung gross, kung baga sa yung gross ATP produce,
Yeah.
pero yung ibang authors, ang nilalagay is yung net.
Yes. Kaya iba-iba.
Okay.
So parang ang nga rin dyan, ma'am, 34 talaga, ay 38. Oh yes. Pero since na nagamit na dun sa first stage sa glycolysis yung dalawa, so minus 2 sa 36 na lang. Tama? Tapos dun sa Krebs cycle, less 2 ulit kasi nagamit nga doon. Kaya yung niya, dun sa net, we only have 34 ATPs.
Okay. Meron
Meron pa bang may dadagdag?
Okay.
Meron pa ba tayong may dadagdag?
Let's now try to sum up para humabol tayo sa oras.
Para makahabol tayo sa oras.
Okay. So, cellular respiration and photosynthesis are biological processes in which matter and energy flow through the biosphere. These two processes are responsible for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between living organisms and the environment.
Okay, so photosynthesis converts carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and glucose. Glucose is used as food by the plant and oxygen is a byproduct. Cellular respiration converts oxygen and glucose into water and carbon dioxide. Water and carbon dioxide are byproducts and ATP is energy that is transformed from the process. Okay.
Okay, and lastly, cellular respiration and photosynthesis are important parts of the carbon cycle. The exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen during photosynthesis and cellular respiration worldwide helps to keep the atmospheric oxygen and carbon dioxide at stable levels.
Stable,
Okay.
stable levels.
Kaya lang, as of now, at stable pa ba
Tanggalin mo
ang ating
carbon dioxide.
carbon dioxide?
Medyo
What do
dumadami.
you
Oo.
think?
Makikita
And,
natin yan sa third quarter ba yun? Yung sa
Oxygen.
global problems.
Oo.
Yes, oo.
Global
Ano
atmosphere.
bang nangyayari na kasi ngayon, ano?
So, di ba, makikita natin, very warm ngayon.
Hindi na siya,
Humid.
unstable na. Unstable na tayo. Unstable na yung ano natin.
So, maraming energy kasi ang nababurn. So,
Yes.
pag madaming na-burn, madaming
maraming
carbon
yes.
dioxide.
Carbon dioxide na ma-release.
Oo, madaming carbon dioxide emissions. And I would like to share this. May time pa ba? May time pa tayo. Okay, pwede mag-share tayo, ano? Yung sa burning of fuel, ano ba yung mga ginagamit nating fuel ngayon? Yung mga petroleum products, di ba?
Yes.
Yung crude oil, gasoline.
Tapos ang gasoline, iba't ibang ano pa, may unleaded. Ano pa yung mga iba?
Mga ganyan. Diesel. And these have been processed, na-process na yan through fractional distillation, na-separate na yan from their fractions. And they came, di ba sabi nila, they came from,
Parang nasa
deposits
isang,
of ancient plants, millions of years ago,
Yes.
which had undergone a chemical change, because of high temperature and pressure underneath the Miss Earth Science, underneath the ocean floor. Kasi usually, kapag nagkakaroon ng deposition, usually the deposited sediments would naturally go down to the lowest parts of the earth. No, and the lowest parts of the earth is where the oceans are found, no? Yung ocean floor natin doon. Kaya maintindihan natin yung most of these plants plant remains that had been fossilized, kaya nga natawag silang fossil fuels, and being pumped, have have stored in them the energy. The energy that they were able to produce millions of years ago, which is now being pumped out sa mga oil wells natin, and used as fuel by different machineries, pwedeng mga transportation vehicles, pwedeng mga malalaking pabrika,
Industries.
Yes, and burning them is returning back the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So, kaya lang, sabi natin, it should be balanced, Kaya lang, there's too much burning.
Yes.
Masyadong mabilis ang pagkaubos ng ating deposited
Fossil fuel.
Fossil fuels natin, or fossil fuel reserves. And sabi ng mga researchers that in the year 2050, mga 2050, kapag hindi nag-slow down ang paggamit natin consumption natin ng fuel, will be the oil reserve worldwide will be soon used up. So wala na tayong ibang gagamitin. Kaya ngayon,
we have to look for renewable sources.
Yes, oo, yun. Kaya ang dami-daming lumalabas ngayon,
Yes.
And meron akong nababasa yung sa Tesla. Si Ronnie, nababasa mo yun?
Hindi ko pa na-encounter yung sabay ganun.
Si Elon Musk, yung billionaire na
Dahil billionaire, alam mo na.
Kanina hindi niya alam.
Gumagawa siya ngayon ng electric cars.
Okay.
Just to save the the carbon dioxide levels of the atmosphere. Yun yata ang susunod na Yun yata ang susunod na
may mga lumalabas na ng mga electronic cars di ba? Yes.
Dumadami siya kasi kailangan nating
Yung diyan sa Kawayan, meron yata sila yung from Kawayan to
yung bus yun.
Oo, yung bus. Kawayan to Ilagan yata
meron noon, pinapatakbo nila yun.
Oo,
libre.
Libre ang
Parang
sakay. Meron pa din yata hanggang ngayon.
Parang
Parang hindi lang naman kasi isa yata yun
Sa yun? Sa ISU yan.
Basta meron dyan sa Kawayan. Tsaka marami na din mga lumalabas na mga electronic cars, di ba?
Parang galit siya rin.
Okay?
So,
may mga idadagdag pa ba tayo? Wala tayong tatanungin sa mga learners natin?
Magsasend na lang ako ng tatanong.
Magsasend na lang ako ng tatanungin ko sa kanila. So,
I
hopefully,
hope.
yes.
Sige, ikaw na nga, Ma'am Dan.
Yes, marami tayong natutunan. Di ba? Lalo na mga learners natin. Kasi pati tayo, di ba, dito na nandito, habang nagtatanungan tayo, nagbabatuhan tayo ng mga tanong, we are also learning.
Natututo tayo.
Yes, natututo tayo. So, sana ganun din yung ating mga estudyante. So, the importance, di ba, yung pakikinig ng live discussion, yung airing of our lesson, talagang napaka-importante yun para madagdagan pa or ma-deepen pa yung learnings natin. Kasi marami pa ding mga doon, ma'am.
Oo, sana mag-increase yung ating mga listeners, especially during live discussions. Kasi ito lang yung chance that we could discuss, no, and they could listen to us. Usually, ito yung mga topics na mahirap igawan ng RBI.
Yes, ma'am, tama ka. So, maraming salamat sa ating lahat, sa mga learners natin. So, Ma'am Donna, ha?
So, I hope grade 9 learners and kahit na hindi grade 9, I hope you had learned from our RBI and live discussion this afternoon. And we will be back for the first topic on
for the second quarter.
For the second quarter. Matagal pa yun. It will be after shift 1.
Kaya lang parang hindi continuation ng natin ngayon yun.
Okay.
Ibang na naman kasi. Parang sa chemistry naman tayo next. Yes, next quarter. Pero may isang buwan ang palalampasin natin Okay, so bye-bye for now, dear learners.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Hindi tayo nag-overtime. Salamat po.
Physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, biochemistry, environmental science. These are some branches of science. Science is about a whole lot more than that. And to sum it up, we believe that science is the way of helping the brain work in finding new knowledge and help us to free our curiosity and how the world develops and works today. Science. This is your class, and this is science. And now, here's your host for the day. Ito ang 106.3 Dance Radio. Dance Radio.
Prepare yourself.
Ang silid-aralan sa radyo, hatid namin ay makabagong paraan ng pagtuturo at kalaman. Umaga, tanghali o hapon man yan, ang estasyon magbibigay impormasyon kahit saan man.
For something big. Alright, here we go.
106.3 Dance Radio. Donna Aurora National High School, Santa Rita, Aurora, Isabela.
This
106.3 DWBR FM. Physics, chemistry, earth science.